New York Jets in the AFC East. We've got them re-signing Jamie and Sherwood, signed Brandon Stevens, a cornerback from the Ravens, and the biggest move, Justin Fields, 2 years, $40 million to play quarterback. Your thoughts on the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's all Justin Fields is the biggest thing here. Now, with teams, sometimes you got to focus on who left as well. Like DJ Reed leaving, now you're bringing in Brandon Stevens as potentially a replacement there. That's not great. That's a fairly significant downgrade. But the Jets conversation begins and probably ends with Justin Fields. 2 years, $40 million. As we said, that is high-end bridge money, but it's not, he's the unquestioned starter going forward for a couple of years. Nothing else is going to change that. Like, we have a starter. He's there, but we're not completely out of the quarterback market. If something happens in the draft, if the right guy falls there, you could easily draft a quarterback and he could be starting by week 6 and it wouldn't, undermine everything you've just done. So Fields to New York is an interesting guy. I mean, we talked about this on the video when it happened. I think people are too, the takes on Fields are not nuanced enough, right? It's like he's good or he's bad. Nothing.
Never have been, Sam. They've never been nuanced.
Right. And it's like, but it's more complicated than that because he's neither great or garbage. He's somewhere in the middle. Like, he's a fascinating quarterback where his athleticism is like top 3, right? Like Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Justin Fields. These are like the most athletically gifted quarterbacks in the NFL. Throw in Josh Allen if you want to talk about a slightly different type of athleticism, but like, he's in that conversation, like one of the most athletically problematic quarterbacks in football to deal with if you're a defender. There's a play out there of him making defensive player of the year, highest paid defender in football, Myles Garrett, look ridiculous on an unblocked, basically a free run right at him. Fields just goes, nope, evades Myles Garrett, gets out, turns it into a positive play. He's got that level of athleticism and athletic potential and an arm to go with it, but has not been the passer that he was supposed to be coming into the NFL. That being said, he has improved year on year, albeit incremental and from a pretty low starting point. And I do think that his biggest problem is not reading the defense from a understanding what he's seeing point of view. It's not necessarily accuracy, though he does have, more bullet passes to guys that don't need to receive bullet passes than he would like to see. I think his biggest problem is not trusting his own eyes, right? Not trusting his reads. Not that he can't process, but like looks up, sees a thing and won't pull the trigger. And I don't know if that's there have been players that have improved that, fixed that in their careers. There's also been players where that's been the reason they can't be good. So I think he's an interesting player to bring in and to roll the dice on because the athleticism is so high that you can get him to a floor that lets you work on the other stuff during a season, right? You can have him starting, it's going to be viable. And then you can figure out if we can get him to have that jump as a passer. I like the gamble. I think it's worth taking if you're the Jets. I also would not be, saying, right, we're done. This is quarterback set. Keep looking for the next guy because the chances are the gamble is not necessarily going to pay off.
No, I completely agree, Sam. I like what the Jets are doing because for a couple reasons. I think there was a handful of teams in the NFL going into this offseason where I said 2025 should not be the goal. And I know that's not a real conversation in buildings a lot of the time. You gotta restructure it. Say, hey, we got to think for the future. We got to think about 26. The Jets are one of those teams. I thought the Raiders, I thought the Titans. You don't need to be just going for it. You have a lot of roster to reshape here with Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Morgan Moses, just on the offensive side of the ball. You need you have to replenish the defensive line. You need a starting wide receiver. You need a starting right tackle. The needs are up and down this roster. Plus you have Aaron Glenn coming in, whole new schemes on both sides of the ball. The whole roster needs to be reshaped, and you got to figure out, who's part of this rebuild. And I think it's okay that the Jets, they've made a couple signings. They added Andre Cisco 1 year at safety as well. Fill a couple of those starting spots. Ideally have guys that are going to be a part of multi-year deals that are going to be a part of the rebuild going forward. And Justin Fields, I think, is a perfect, still theoretical, high upside guy that you laid out, high upside shot at quarterback that doesn't keep you from drafting a guy at 7, doesn't keep you from drafting a guy in the second round. And I think you have to draft a quarterback, to be honest. I think you have to bring somebody in. You're not just saying, well, it's Fields or bust. It's Fields and Tyrod Taylor next year. I think you have to draft one of those QBs in this draft, but get somebody in there and start thinking to 2026. And I think these Jets moves, locking up Jamie Sherwood, who has really progressed into one of the better linebackers in the NFL. I thought those were all good moves for the Jets because they're more long-term plays.
Yeah. Again, I would just say the analysis on Fields should be more nuanced than it is. Even if you just use like blunt, surface level statistics to look at where he is. Like his passer rating last year, it's gotten better pretty much every year of his career. It's gone from low 70s, which is bad, to last year it was like 93, right? 93 puts him in the Bo Nix, Geno Smith, Jordan Love kind of range. Obviously, again, passer rating, wildly flawed stat, but it blunt tool, it puts you in a vague direction.
Perspective. Yeah.
Right. 5 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, 6.8 yards per attempt is in the Bo Nix category as well. Like it's viable, right? It's like it's right somewhere in the middle in the NFL right now. And that's the thing he's worst at, right? The passing, the general passing stuff. Now, is it also true that once Russell Wilson came into the lineup, like Pittsburgh's offense notably ticked up, right? He unlocked some elements of that offense. I think also entirely accurate, right? So this is the thing. Like he's viable. He's not, he's sort of middle of the road, somewhere in the average category of a passer with spectacular athleticism. But the flaws so far mean that a guy like Russell Wilson, who's willing to just air it out and trust what he sees and chuck the ball in the vague direction of George Pickens, will improve the offense. So that's why he's getting this sort of $20 million a year hedge deal rather than, of course, we're going to bring him in as a start. Like that's why he's getting this deal as opposed to the Sam Darnold deal, because we still don't know if he can be better than he is right now.
Yeah, and just to repeat that, make no mistake, it's a high-end bridge deal, right? It isn't Justin Fields is our guy going forward. He's not the starter. It's him and Daniel Jones are in this similar boat of bridge quarterback with pretty big inflation over the last couple of years. But the last thing I'll repeat is, given the options, I think the Jets did well to bring in Justin Fields as an upside play, because to me, it's the Jets. All of their moves are about 2026 and beyond, not 2025. The draft is obviously going to be huge for them, it is for everyone, but they need a receiver, a tackle, defensive line depth. They need a lot in reshaping this thing, and I think Fields is a good guy to kind of either bridge them to the next, era here, or maybe they do unlock him and he's the next Geno Baker, that the guy that a lot of teams are searching for. Can we get the most out of this guy that's talented?
It's a little bit like Pittsburgh last year, right? If you don't like this move, if you're like, nah, Fields isn't the guy, he's terrible, he sucks, I don't like him, this is a bad move by the Jets. Well, then the obvious question follow-up is, well, okay, what would you have done, right? Clearly, the Rodgers thing was a failure. You're not bringing him back. Sam Darnold was the kind of prize of the veteran free agent market. Sam Darnold was never going to the Jets based off Sam Darnold already playing for the Jets. So that was never really an option. Like, where else are you going for quarterback if you're the Jets? They're not in a position where you can guarantee one of the top 2 guys in this draft unless you trade aggressively up to go do that. Even if you do that, you've got to beat the trade offer from the Giants or whoever else is potentially trading up to make that happen. Would they have done the Raiders trade and traded a third for Geno Smith and then paid him the contract that he's going to want? And you don't have the advantage of the connection with Pete Carroll there. Like, you've got to do that on its own merits and hope Geno's okay with that. Like, my answer would be, if you don't like Fields, like, what was the better option on the table?
Well, just to wrap this up, though, the Jets are also stuck with this idea that if Geno Smith, let's call him available, and Sam Darnold was the most available, those are also guys who, quote, failed in New York previously. So right. Whether they've changed as players or not over the last 10 years for Geno or 4 or 5 years for Sam Darnold, you know that's still in the back of your mind. Did they fail because of it was New York? Was it us? So they can't go after two of the most coveted quarterbacks during the cycle, Geno Smith and Sam Darnold. So yeah, this was the best option that they had. And now again, I think they have to draft somebody. It doesn't have to be at 7. I think they should draft somebody as well.
And, the other option would be Russell Wilson. And to be honest, I think that, let's say they could sign him to the exact same contract. And I know no indication that that's true, but I would take the gamble on the young upside of Justin Fields over a 36-year-old version of Russell Wilson, even having seen Wilson effectively outplaying Fields in the same offense a year ago. I still think going forward, that's the better gamble to take. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.